Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to our first Wing New Zealand webinar of the year, and hopefully one of many for the future. Today we are going to be looking at answering one of the more common questions that the committee has received recently. What is Wing? What is Wing about? And more importantly, what does it mean to be a wingman? So I have some awesome wahine and an awesome tani here today who I'm going to introduce to you shortly to take you through a little bit about the past, the present, and the future of Wing New Zealand. To introduce myself, my name is Claire Baxter. I have been a part of Wing for many years. However, a lot of my involvement has actually been over in the UK, Wing UK, Wing Turkey, and other parts of Europe. I moved back to New Zealand to be back home about a year ago now, and at that point I joined Wing New Zealand. And I currently work for Sequin and based down in Christchurch. To make sure you know a little bit about what to expect before I go ahead and do the other introductions, I want to give you a little bit of housekeeping on how today's webinar is going to run. So if you haven't figured it out already, you are all placed on mute. However, if you do have any questions or any comments, please use the Q&A section of Zoom. We will look to answer some of those questions at the end of the webinar. For those of you who are non-members and decide that you want to join up and hear a little bit more from Wing in the future, I've put a message into the chat with a link to the membership page to be able to sign up. So please feel free to click on that and join at any stage. And lastly, as much as today is all about us talking to you about Wing, we also want to hear from you and what you guys want to see from us. So we are going to be running a couple of polls, and to kick started, let me set up and launch our first poll. Let us know, what do you know about Wing? So while that's running, I'm going to introduce our three speakers. We're going to hear first from Abby Dean. Abby has worked in the renewable energy industry for about 12 years and has been involved in Wing since 2013. Including being the Wing New Zealand ambassador from 2014 to 22, and as a global executive from 2014 to 2020. So she has definitely been there from the beginning. She currently wears two main hats. One is a strategic consultant for Jacobs, and 1/3 of both where she works within communities. We're going to hear from Gabby Butchinen, who joined the geothermal industry about a year and a half ago when she started working for Western Energy as a field technician in the sampling department. She then joined the Wing committee in June this year and made it onto our Wing retreat. And she's also one of the fastest mountain bikers in Taupo, potentially even New Zealand, as they say. And lastly, we're going to hear from our wingman, Alan Ferguson, who entered the geothermal industry as a geochemist with Mercury in 2018, where he was first introduced to Wing via the Wingman Special Taskforce training. After the training, he joined the Wing New Zealand committee. That was around 2 years ago. And he's currently the measurement supervisor at Contact Energy, but also still gets to dabble a little bit in geochemistry for project work. So thank you very much, team, for coming on board today, and I will let you guys take it away.
Is that me? Yeah? Awesome.
I think that is you.
Kia ora tātou. Ko tauhara te maunga. Ko tauponuitia te awa, no tauponuitia ahau, Ko Dean tōku whānau, ko Abby tōku ingoa. So I'm Abby Dean. I hail from the beautiful geothermally active area of Taupua. And we just wanted to thank you all for coming along today to find out a bit about Wing if you don't already know, as the poll says, if you're not already an expert. Next slide. So this is my wild ride with Wing. My journey with Wing started in 2013, shortly after Wing was started. And every day since 2013, my time with Wing has been a wild ride. I have learned so much about gender equity in the many different corners of the globe. I've learnt a lot about how lucky we are in New Zealand, and also a bit about the challenges we still face here on gender equity. And I've learnt a lot about the kind of challenges that people face in areas like East Africa, as an example. It's not always been good, but it's always been incredibly rewarding, and it's because of the epic people who are part of it, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about shortly. Next slide. So it all started in Vegas in 2013 with this bunch of women. They got together and founded Wing at GRC in Vegas in October of 2013. So as of next year, it'll be 10 years old. The global team pretty shortly after that was given to New Zealand to set up. And so this meant that from 2013 to 2020, the Wing New Zealand team was the global team. And that wild ride meant that Wing Global was the main priority. Since 2021, we've been able to take a step back and take a breath and a break, first of all, and then regroup. And we've been starting to think a little bit more about what Wing NZ is and what Wing NZ might be able to achieve. So that's what Gabby's going to tell you a little bit about. Yes, right. So, but why? But why Wing? Why is this important? I really like this statement from Kim Campbell, the CEO of Employers and Manufacturers Association from 2012, so it's quite a while ago. Women in the workforce face a subtle institutionalized bias against them, discrimination that is hard to measure and well hidden. This means that it's super hard to highlight, to find good data to better understand this, and change in the space can be slow and hard. It's, like I said before, super rewarding. Next slide. Thanks. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the inner workings of Wing and how it's structured. So to start with, it's pretty simple. We try to make it a flat structure. So there's not much hierarchy in the organization. Next one. And so as I said, 2013 to 2020, the global operations of Wing sat with the New Zealand global team. In 2020, it moved to the US team, who you can see here. So Anne Robertson Tate is the global chair, Kelly Blake is the global executive, and there's a global team that sits with them. This team in 2023, so at the next World Geothermal Congress, they will step down and Wing Turkey will take over. So what happens with that global, those global roles is they move with every World Geothermal Congress. Next one, thank you. Lovely. So in 2020, we also identified that we really needed a global advisory board. So these lovely humans here currently sit on the interim global advisory board. So the global team's role is to execute the operational parts of WING, and the global advisory board is there to ensure the organisation's reputation and long-term strategy. Next slide. Lovely. And then these familiar faces, hopefully, is our WING New Zealand team. So Catherine Newman, Cat Newman, is our current WING New Zealand ambassador. She is there at the top. And that's your lovely team at the bottom who serve our members. Next slide. Which is you. Hopefully, if you are a member already. If not, I encourage you to sign up. It's free. We don't send you that much stuff, trust me. I brought this, put this slide up because I wanted to highlight the number of humans that give their time and their energy, because most of these people don't get paid to do this work. They all are volunteer in their extra time and extra hours. And that's cool. That tells me that that people care about this, that it's worth it, because we don't have a lot of extra time, right? So it always needs to go to a worthy cause, and these amazing humans do that. Next slide. Yes, so what is WING? What is Women in Geothermal? So Women in Geothermal is a voluntary, not-for-profit organisation, and our aim is to promote the education, professional development and advancement of women in the geothermal community. So note with that there's no prerequisite that you're technical or that you work heavily in the geothermal industry. You might not be a technical person, but care about the industry, and you can join as well. Our vision is to ignite the passion and courage that will make the geothermal community a global model for equality. And the aim, I love this aim, this is what I'm all about, is one day to become redundant, so to no longer need WING. WING can turn into ping, people in geothermal, if we so desire. Next slide. So I wanted to note here that we often end up having conversations about equality, but equity is my favourite term, and you'll hear me say that a fair bit. If you're not aware already, equality is about giving everybody the same things, whereas equity is about giving everybody that they need to succeed. And I really like this image because some people might need two boxes or a ramp. Next slide. So WING has 4 core values: courageous, empowering, open, and caring. These are the core values that we live and do everything by as much as we can. And we also have a series of awards every year where you can put people forward to be nominated for these categories, and they'll get a really cool award at the end. Next slide. So WING Global by the numbers. As of yesterday, when I finished putting these slides together, we had 2,690 members from 86 different countries, and there are 34 WING chapters, WING country chapters. So it's quite a bit. That for me says that WING actually is one of the largest geothermal organisations on the planet. There There is IGA, that is a conglomerate of members, but Wing is is the largest geothermal organisation. Next slide. So New Zealand has been the New Zealand has been the driving force behind building Wing, and I think we should be really proud of that as a country. So in 2021, the New Zealand chapter had 307 members, and for a while there, New Zealand members made up the majority of Wing. And ever since then, we've grown exponentially. In June 2022, New Zealand had 375 members, and as of July this year, we had 411 members. What I'm the most proud of is that actually the New Zealand Wing membership is made up of about 60% female and 60% female and 40% male. That means that we have one of the highest male to female gender splits, and I would love us to see us become a 50-50 split there in the next year, which is one of Wing's main aims. Next slide. Yay! And so from there, you're going to be handed over to the lovely Gabby, who is going to talk a bit about what New Zealand is currently doing and what we plan to do. Thanks, Gabby. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Abby. So cool to see the Wing numbers growing across the world. It's really exciting. So yeah, I'm going to just chat a little bit about the Wing New Zealand chapter and what we're currently up to and what we have coming up. So I introduced you the 2022 Wing Committee. I was lucky enough, as Claire mentioned, to join the Wing retreat this year in Rotorua. And every year the Wing Committee holds a retreat. And this is where the new committee meets for a weekend. And it's a really awesome opportunity for them to bond and brainstorm, energize, inspire, and build a foundation of goals and focus areas that we want to tackle over the coming year. So Wing New Zealand is currently focused on our own impact here in Aotearoa. Our chapter is currently 411 members strong and growing, and our members span the industry, academia, the community, the government, and many more. So we aim to provide our members with networking and volunteering opportunities, as well as bettering the industry by proposing equitable policies and recruitment practices. And we're keenly looking for others who want to help us make an impact. And if you do want to get involved, Kat Newman is our Wing New Zealand ambassador. So get in touch with her and she'll get you involved. Next slide, thanks. Cool. So meet our current committee. We are really proud to have such a diverse range of people spanning various aspects of the geothermal industry, including babies and dogs. So yeah, Kat Newman, as I mentioned up the top there, she works for Contact Energy and is the Wing New Zealand ambassador. Next slide, thanks. So since our retreat in July, we have held our Wing Awards at the Wing networking event, which was held during New Zealand Geothermal Week. And these awards celebrate an individual in the geothermal community who represents one or more of our Wing core values. So courageous, empowering, open, and caring. There are 2 awards given out and recipients are nominated by fellow Wing members. So the One to Watch award recognises a Wing member who is on track to make great changes and contributions in the industry. This typically goes to someone who is relatively new to the industry and is doing awesome work. So this year, Nissa Brewer of Mercury Energy won this award. The Wahine Award recognises a woman who has made an impact in both the industry and community over years of service and has been doing awesome work for a really long time. So the talented Emily Collis of Mercury was this year's recipient of this award. Next slide. Cool. So at our retreat, we came up with a list of goals that we wanted to achieve over the year. So first one being the 50 male-female membership. We're pretty close, but just want to bump those numbers up in the male memberships. We'd like to improve recruitment practices at geothermal companies and help to improve diversity and inclusion. We'd like to begin corporate discussions around more equal parental leave for parents and increase member engagement by launching a virtual event series and enabling meaningful discussions, and link the wider New Zealand geothermal community in one strong network. And we also will provide resources for anyone that experiences gender discrimination. Next slide, thanks. So to help us achieve these goals, we came up with 4 main initiatives that were determined by where we could make the biggest impact and really put our energy into to make a difference. So within these focus groups, we meet frequently to discuss the issues we have and get the ball rolling on how to make an impact across them. So it might involve planning events or looking into research and reaching out to our wider networks for help. So these 4 initiatives are recruitment, parental leave, engagement, and events. And I'll just talk a little bit about each one and where we're at. Next slide, cool. So in the recruitment team, we've been discussing ways to increase diversity through recruitment and company culture and strategy. So we're hoping to encourage and push diversity within geothermal by developing sort of an information package that we can pass out to companies, and this can assist them with latest research and how they can best encourage a diverse range of applicants when advertising and hiring. Secondly, we want to look at how we can keep women in the industry. So this challenge we're hoping to tackle by increasing awareness of inclusive cultures and non-biased training across the industry. So hoping here to achieve this through a means of encouraging companies to provide some sort of training to staff, perhaps, that might help prepare them for having women on site, or looking at how we can make work sites safer for women. We'd also like to influence policies that make it easier for women to stay in the industry and progress with their careers, even after maybe having a family. So that brings us to our next initiative, parental leave. Here, the parental leave team have been looking at putting together an information package that summarises what you're legally entitled to in New Zealand in regards to parental leave. And that might come with some tips and tricks, particularly for first-time parents. Currently, they are building on the work done by Project Mātua. So that means Project for the Parents. This project was initiated to understand the current status of maternity and paternity support in the geothermal industry, and to work on ideas and models that we can promote to the industry. And if you want to find out a bit more about Project Mātua, check it out on our WING website. And then in the longer term, this team is hoping to research and understand what good parental leave policies look like for companies and the implication that this has to equity and culture in the workplace. And engagement. So our engagement team is focused on communication with our WING members and how we're getting our messages across. So here we want to make sure that our WING members stay in the loop and are actively part of WING. So we're exploring different avenues of social media and how we can best communicate events to our members so that they can actually be more involved and help us to build momentum with our goals. Obviously, one of our big goals is to have the 50-50 male-female membership. And so we're looking at how we can achieve that and encourage more men to join and get behind Wing. So here they're looking into gaps in our communication, analysing engagement numbers that we have to date, and looking at where we can improve on this. You may have also noticed, if you have joined Wing, that your emails from us are going straight into spam folder, which isn't ideal. So we're also looking into how we can improve this and make our newsletters interesting and engaging with different content, maybe some job advertisements and opportunities within the industry as well. Next slide. Cool. And our final initiative is events. So in the event sphere, we're working on a bunch of events that we can put out there to get our members involved and engaged, and open some networking opportunities, and to provide information and skill training to members, and bring the geothermal industry up as a whole. So we've recognised that not all of our members are solely based in the Taupo region, and we've been working on ways that we can have a broader reach with our events and be more inclusive to those that can't attend in-person events locally. So we're kicking off a virtual series of webinar and networking events. So this webinar today is the first of many, and a great way to answer that common question we encounter as a committee: what is Wing? We also then plan to have alternating webinars and virtual networking events. So the webinars will focus on various topics, for example, maybe one on non-biased training, or we might get a speaker in that can discuss some of our Wing core values, or maybe provide upskill opportunities. And then the virtual networking events, we're still working on some details, but they will be some sort of online event that you can maybe bring some wine and cheese, and it might be like an online speed dating, but with industry professionals, and you can meet and network with others in the industry. So watch this space and keep an eye out for details to come. And of course, we started off our events this year with the Wing social networking event at Mavericks during Geothermal Week. So that was an awesome sellout event, and we had a really great turnout. And it was also a really good event for us in terms of boosting membership network and numbers. So thanks to everyone that attended that. Next slide. So what's coming up? Firstly, we've got our webinar series. So this will be online and ongoing. The next event will be our virtual networking event, and we plan to have this sometime end of October. Then at NZGW in Auckland, we will have a Wing booth and panel. So this is from the 23rd to the 25th of November. So if you're around, come and check it out and support Wing. And then we'll also be planning some Wing happy hour social events. So keep an eye out for details on that one. So I might just get Claire to pop another poll in here, just so we can gauge what initiatives we have that resonate with you most. So whether that's parental leave, recruitment, engagement, or events. There we go. And if you have any other suggestions, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Cool. And next slide, Claire. So if you want to keep up to date with what Wing is getting up to, we've got plenty of platforms for you to follow us on. We've got LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and then our email where the newsletters are sent from. So if you'd like to get involved and demonstrate our core values every day, join Wing. It's super easy, and you can be globally connected to geothermal leaders. You can learn more about upcoming opportunities, jobs, and tools that can improve gender equality in your workplace. And you can advance yourself and build your support network and be support to others. So yeah, go to womeningeothermal.org and click membership. And I think Claire has dropped the link in the chat if you would like to sign up. It's super easy. So thank you for your time, and I will now pass over to our awesome wingman, Alan, and he can tell you about how cool it is to be a wingman.
Thanks, Gabby, and thanks, Abby, for your overview of Wing earlier on. Cool. So yeah, I've been given the task of talking about what it means to be a wingman. I will say I'm filling in for Carl Pilbro today. He was meant to be doing this. He's an awesome wingman, but he got called overseas for some important stuff over there for MB Century. So I'm filling in. So I'll do my best to do this justice. I'm also aware that, yeah, I don't really want this to be a lecture about this is what you should be to be a wingman and more like me. Like, I think I don't profess to be perfect. During my time with Wing, I've learned a lot about what it means to be a wingman, but I think there's always things that we can all improve on. So I guess I hope today to just give you a bit of an insight into, I guess, the training that I received to become a wingman, and what you can do to be a wingman. And probably it maybe sounds a bit intimidating, and it doesn't have to be hard. You can do a lot of little things that can still make a difference. So I guess, why does Wing want men involved in the conversation as well? Why is this not just a completely women's group talking about the issues that women face? Well, Wing wants to encourage men to be role models, champions, and advocates of gender equity, and just add another voice to that, sort of give some more support to increasing awareness about gender equity and pushing it within the geothermal industry, but also I guess society in general would be good. So if we flick to the next slide, Claire, please. Thank you. So where did Wingman begin? I guess Wing has always welcomed men as members, but probably it really started to kick off back in, I think, 2016, when the first Wingman Special Task Force was put together. And on that occasion, it was at Mercury back in 2016. And Andy Blair came in and gave a pile of training for people. This is the stock photo that has got to be shown every time we talk about Wingman Special Task Force. I'm sure some people on the call will recognise some people in the photo. That was a great success in 2016, and people within the sort of Mercury organisation noticed a real change in the environment, and the fact that men were willing to speak up for women really made a difference to women in that environment. So following the success of that, they did a second cohort in 2019, which I was lucky to be part of. Thankfully, there's no embarrassing photos of our cohort, but that was really valuable training for me and definitely made me a better person. And that Wingman Special Task Force training since then has been rolled out of Contact and overseas in places like El Salvador. I think there's future plans to sort of put together a sort of training pack, some recorded videos and stuff, so that it can be rolled out more easily, because at the moment it really relies on people like Andy Blair and Paul Siratovich and Katie Noble going out there and giving up their time to go and do these training sessions. The training session that I was involved in, it was over a period of 12 months, so we did a session each month, so there was a lot of topics that we covered, but I'll do my best to try and give you a bit of a flavour of what we covered. So if we go to the next slide, probably covered a bit of this already, but the training provided, I guess, it allowed men to understand the issues that women face and the biases that they have to overcome, because as a man, we probably didn't see a lot of them, a bit naive to them maybe. But because we aren't facing them, it's hard to recognise what issues that women were facing. And also, as I said, just engages men in this conversation and allows us to get some tools together that can help us make some meaningful change. So on the next slide, there's a bit of an overview about the training. Obviously, it was a 12-month training course, so there's no way I could cover it in the next 3 or 4 minutes, but I thought I would just give a bit of an overview, show some of the topics that we talked about, and try and pass on some of the tools that we were given to help us become wingmen, I guess. So I'll start with language, and I guess it was opening our eyes to a lot of these terms on the left-hand side of that table, which we probably all use in our day-to-day lives or see in the media, and they're used pretty freely. And I guess if you don't think about them too hard, then they're not too offensive, but a lot of them are biased, and it sort of genderizes a lot of these professions, I guess. And one of the issues in geothermal is that people say, "Oh, well, there's not enough women out there in these different." I guess engineering's a good example. I often hear that we can't get engineers who are women because the women are not doing these courses. But when we start to look at the language that's used in society, or the way that people think about different sorry, I'm just getting distracted by the poll popping up. The way that people sort of internally see these professions, it can influence potentially what path they take. And so it's learning about these language by the biased language that you might see, and trying to correct that, avoid it, and change the language that you use in your day-to-day life. So a good example of how media and the society sort of drives this bias is on the next slide. If we can just flick to that. So this is an example of what's portrayed to women and men when they're growing up as a boy's life is like, you can do all this cool stuff, all this engineering stuff, whereas the girl's life is promoting how you look and how you feel. So I guess it, again, these things are probably not too offensive or dangerous, but it can potentially drive that the bias, unconscious biases that people build up as they grow up, and potentially the path they might take, but also how different people in society see where women should fit in society. So I guess it just gave us a good understanding of that. If we flick to the next slide. We also learned about, I guess, some issues that women face in the workplace, and that is probably again related to some of that societal stuff, and that some men think that their opinions are potentially more important than others, and so you can run in the risk of, in a meeting, for example, or in the workplace, mansplaining, which is explaining something typically to a woman in a condescending or patronizing manner, and it typically can happen when actually the woman has more experience, but the man feels like he has to, I guess, enforce his opinion or show that he knows more. Bro-appropriation is taking credit for a woman's ideas in a meeting, or again in the workplace, and man-interrupting is something that can happen like in a meeting where there's unnecessary interrupting of a woman's point of view. So I guess a lot of the language stuff was about making aware of these things, helping us recognize when they're happening so that we could speak up when we did see these things happening. So some of the tools that we picked up in terms of language are on the next slide. If we can flip there. So I think key one is think about the language you use, check if it's biased or if it's it needs correcting, and try as much as possible to use sort of inclusive language. Like I said, if we recognize what negative behavior is or what issues that women are facing, then we can speak up and be a voice for that. And it doesn't always have to be a woman pointing out that there was some negative behavior in a meeting. Just simple things like making sure everyone in a meeting is heard. Some people are less likely to speak up, so making sure that everyone's opinion is heard and is given the same credit as everyone else. So if a woman does have a good idea, make sure you reinforce that. One that sounds really simple, but often happens, is that women are asked to take minutes in meetings. So make sure if you're a man in the meeting, and you see that happening, just offer to take the minutes. It sounds like a little thing, but it will probably make quite a big difference to that woman so that she can fully participate in the meeting. And another one that probably sounds quite simple, but can help have an impact is looking for biased language in presentations, training manuals, any company communications or emails. In my experience, when you point this kind of thing out, the people involved are pretty happy to hear the feedback. So yeah, I guess it's just about recognizing little things and trying to make little changes that if we all do it, then it can make quite a big impact within organizations. So I think that covers off language. If we flick to the next one, we did actually quite a few sessions, or at least 2, on unconscious bias. And these are the sessions where you find out that you're a horrible person and you've got all these biases that you didn't maybe realize that you had. So I guess when you look at your unconscious biases, the intention is not to make you feel like you're a good or bad person, because biases exist in all of us. And they're built up by the way you're brought up. If we go back to a lot of the language that is used in society, or just stuff like the fact that women wear pink and boys wear blue, that's what we're kind of ingrained to think. All of these different sort of societal or behavioral things are learned as we grow up. They don't make us bad. The key thing is that they're an opinion, they're not a behavior. And so we don't have to act on our opinion. We don't have to behave badly. And so the key thing is becoming aware of your biases, because then you can overcome them and suppress them, and actually avoid making decisions based on your unconscious biases that you might not be aware of. So I think within Contact, we've got an unconscious bias module that people can do. If your organization doesn't have that, I'd encourage you to look online, and it's really easy to find a sort of quiz thing that will tell you about your unconscious biases, because as soon as you learn about them, you're aware of them and you can overcome them. So for me, that was a big one. And to realize, like, also if you see bias from other people, you can help them by pointing it out as well. So really valuable thing to learn, unconscious bias. If I quickly flick to the next one. I guess I wanted to highlight that the WINGman training that we received, like, a lot of it was focused on the workplace and how we can help women in the workplace, but we also covered off family as well. So I guess this session was a bit more of an eye-opener for people, for some people, maybe not for others, but talking about the mental load and what that means for people, for your partner or your family at home, if you're not doing your part of the mental load. And so I think after that session, there was probably a lot of happy families and partners, or flatmates at home that got a lot of benefits, because the men involved actually recognized that if they weren't taking the mental load, they had to step up. So for me, that was a good eye opener, and definitely something that I tried to improve on since that training. If we flick to the next one, recruitment. So this is something that Gabby touched on earlier as one of our focus areas, and it probably spawned a bit out of the WINGman training itself. So in the training, we learned about the inequities that women face throughout the recruitment process, and it really encouraged us to come up with some ideas to overcome this, either from research, from some stuff that had worked in other organizations or industries, and looked at us kind of pushing, or in that case, I was working at Mercury, pushing Mercury to boost diversity in recruitment, to give us a more diverse work environment. We've done, it's fair to say, like with Wing New Zealand, we've done a fair amount of work on this. We've got quite a few ideas about how we can help in this regard. So if we quickly flick to the next slide, like, again, I've not got enough time to talk. I could probably talk you could probably bore you for quite a while talking about recruitment. But we've come up with a few ideas that would help generate a diverse talent pool for people. How to make sure that the interview process is equitable for everyone. How to increase opportunities for internal candidates, and how to make it sustainable. So how to retain women and keep them within your company. So I'm not going to go through them all today, but as Gabby said, we've got some documentation and we're putting stuff together in this regard. So if this is something that interests you or your organization, then definitely get in touch and we can pass on some of our ideas. We don't profess to be experts, but hopefully it at least starts the conversation and gets things moving in the right direction. And if we quickly flick to the last slide, I guess that is a very whistle-stop tour of what we covered in the Wingman training. I think the thing that I learned from it is that the changes you can make don't have to be from big sort of grand projects or big changes in your organization. You can make little changes to the way you speak, to the way that you manage meetings, to the way that you talk to people within your industry or within your organization, and how you, I guess, give women, I guess, just letting women know that you've got their back is a big change within your organization and can actually make an impact for people. And probably the other one is be brave, because it is pretty hard to speak up in meetings, especially if it's not the culture. And the first few times you do it, it might feel a bit weird. But so I guess to the women in the call, if you do see a wingman behaving in a good way and sticking up for you, then give them that feedback that you appreciate it, because that will boost them to do it the next time. But I think we can all make little changes that will improve things for everyone. And if people want to, and this, I'm conscious that this was a really quick run through. If people want to learn more, feel free to get in touch with me or Wing New Zealand, and we can try and pass on some more information. Yeah, I think that's it from me. So I'll hand back to Claire. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Hopefully everyone on the call has learned something new today. And very quickly, to give you a little bit of a rundown on the poll, I see most of you are keen to hear a little bit more around hiring and recruitment. A few of you around events and parental leave, and some of you on engagement. So do keep an eye out, and if you do have any questions or you're keen to contribute in any way, as Gabby mentioned, please reach out to Kat Newman, who is our Wing New Zealand ambassador, and she'll be able to point you in the right direction. But we do have a partai, so we've got a question from Anna. Anna's asked, is Wing just for engineers and scientists? Is there anyone on the panel or the speakers who'd like to answer? Abby?
I can happily answer that one. No, it's for everybody. Wing is not just for those who are technical. Wing is very much about anyone who is interested in gender equity in the geothermal industry. You actually don't have to work in the geothermal industry. You can just be interested in the geothermal industry. And you can be from any kind of background you like. We're here for everybody. Really good question. So thank you for asking that, Anna.
Awesome. And I saw during the talk, there was another raised hand as well. I believe, now I'm terrible with this. I think it was Anne. Do you want to raise your hand again, and we can see if we can take you off mute to talk, if you're still there. No? Oh, I think if you did raise your hand during the presentation, please feel free to reach out. We're normal people, we're volunteers, we're mums, all sorts. So do feel free to reach out. We are putting the information together, so you will see a little bit more from us. I guess quick last question for everyone here and all our speakers is, what have you gained most from being a part of Wing? Who wants to, I'll see who wants to go first.
I can go. I would say just a really awesome network of super lovely and supportive people.
Agreed. Agreed. Ellen?
Yeah, I can go. You could have warned us you were going to ask us a difficult question.
Sorry.
Nah, I'm joking.
I just came.
Nah, it's an easy one. Like I think I mentioned during my talk, like I think it, like the things that I've learned and the people that I've met through Wing have just made me a better person. So that's what I'm most thankful for. Yeah.
Thanks. Maybe
I can't just choose one. I can't just choose one.
three?
I would probably reflect or agree with Ellen on the people that I've met through Wing has made me a better person. Made me a better better human of the world, better friend, better colleague. Absolutely 100%. There are so many things I've gained from Wing. Better understanding of different cultures. Super selfishly, everywhere I've gone on holiday, I've met up with Wing people and they've shown me around their country. Just so many things. It's been so rewarding. It's why after almost 10 years I haven't stepped away at all. What about you, Claire? What have you gained?
A lot. I'd agree with all three of you. First and foremost, I think for me, the big one is in some ways a sense of belonging. For a lot of my career, I've been the only female or one of few females within my immediate team. So for me, being able to have that space to have those open conversations with different people outside of the organization that are going through something similar to me, or even just a different perspective, has been really rewarding. But also I have been, as Abby said, being able to go anywhere around the world and be connected with someone in the geothermal community, to be able to show you around and to talk a little bit about what they've been up to as well. So on that note, tēnā koutou katoa, thank you very much to all of our speakers. Thank you for taking the time to share with us a little bit about what Wing is, what a wingman is, and where we're heading in the future. I think it's really exciting for us here in Aotearoa with Wing and what we want to do over the next year and beyond. So please reach out, keep an eye out. Look forward to seeing you at the next virtual event or NZGW in person. Kia ora.